who were some mentors for you when you were coming up, especially gigging?
Oh man, so most of that was happening when I was still living in Jersey.
Okay.
I grew up in North Bergen, New Jersey, which is right over the George Washington Bridge. So we can get to
Oh, sure.
Manhattan, honestly, in 15 minutes. And back in the 70s and 80s, you can actually really do that because wasn't this huge amount of people, basically.
Hmm.
Just jump over the bridge or go into the tunnel and be in New York in a minute. But as far as like the guitar players in particular, I would have to say Vic Juris, who lived not too far from me. Without a doubt, probably the most important, person versus what I'm talking about recordings like Pat Martino and Benson and Wes and all those guys. But as far as somebody that I would routinely communicate with was Vic. I used to go out here and hear him. You might never know this, but Chuck Globe, who also we just lost really recently, was a monster, like straight ahead jazz guitar player too. And I used to hear them at these small little clubs, just Vic and Chuck playing together. And they would always, at the end of the night, they would say, "Hey, Barry, come on up, play a tune." And I was just a kid,
Wow.
but they would always give me that opportunity. And so, yeah, I really owe Vic a lot. One of the most important things, I think, in that regard is that he would just call me up and say, "Hey, why don't you just come on over later? We'll play some tunes."
Hmm.
And I'd frantically start just warming up.
Sure.
And I get to his house, and you could just tell he's just wiping the sleep out of his eyes,
Hmm.
And he would just take out. Back then, the Ovation guitars were a big deal. I don't know why that was.
Totally.
And rub this thing called Fast Fret on it. I don't know if I've ever even seen it again. It was like this.
I know that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, you put that on, and wow. And we never talked about money, but it certainly felt like a lesson. And
Sure.
he was showing me stuff that he was working on with Pat Martino. He was driving to Philly to take lessons with Pat Martino, and
Wow.
all the handwritten stuff of his, which is some that I still have. And it was just great. So, although I have tons of guitar heroes on recordings, Vic, by far, musically, was the most important person in my life.
Yeah. There's something. There's so much listening you can do that's helpful, but to have someone, in the flesh that's willing to just open up and just give you anything you need
Mhm.
in that open way.
Yeah, and a lot of it too wasn't even necessarily that communicated, like use the
Mhm.
Dorian mode here, kind of stuff like that. It was just playing tunes and recognizing, especially when you hear yourself, and we all have experienced this when you have to follow somebody who just completely just wasted you as far as musically. You recognize where all of your weaknesses are and what you need to work on much more than you in the safety of your bedroom. You
Sure.
know, and the gigs were the same thing, being on gigs with people that were so much better, where you feel like, sweat pouring down your forehead because you knew you were just outmatched here, but you learn so, so, so much. And I know that's advice that many people have given, Pat Metheny in particular, saying always play with people that are better than you. But
Yeah.
it's solid, important advice.
Yeah. I mean, if you're the best person on the stage, that's not a good position to be in.
No, especially in the early part of your life when you're really trying
Yeah.
to learn. So, yeah.
Totally. So were you in high school at that time?
No, I had finished. I'd gone 2 years at Berkeley. I took 1 year off because I had gotten a really, really good gig. I did that. And then I came
Okay.
back and was at William Patterson College.
Oh, wow.
This is be 82 to 84.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy.
early mid 20s.
Pardon me?
So like early mid 20s.
Yeah, early 20s for sure. That's exactly when that was going on. The time, hanging out with Vic and then just jumping into New York every single night sometimes. Because you could, back then it cost only, I think it was like $3 or $4. Now it's like $15, I think, to cross into the city. It's just insane. But there were clubs, like the one place in
Yeah.
particular called Bradley's.
Oh, I've heard many stories. Yeah.
Yeah, you said we can walk in that place. I've walked in there so many times with people like, Kenny Barron, all these monster musicians. I remember one time, I'll never forget it. I think all you had to do was buy a drink. I think that's the only thing you had to do. Sit at the bar but there was no cover.
Tough break.
You walk in, and I'll never forget it because as soon as you walk in, there's the piano. I remember, seeing Rufus Reed and all this, but I'll never forget this because the way it was set up, you'd walk in, the bar is here and the band is here, and then you had to make a sharp right turn to head down to where the bathrooms were. So you couldn't really see who it might have been. And I turned
Okay.
that corner, and there's Tony Bennett just sitting in the corner, like drawing. It's like it was such a great place to grow up.
Oh
Be
man.
around all that. But yeah, places like that. Chris 55 bar was the same kind of a thing. I think it just
Sure.
required you buying a drink or two. So I used to go
Yeah.
hear Stern all the time with a Walkman in my jacket, like recording all of it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was the best. So it was an environment for sure, full of inspiration. I saw Joe Pass play solo guitar several times at the Village Vanguard.
Whew.
It was just amazing. It was great.